All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Leon Geschwind, and welcome to our session called Attention, NOAA Climate Change Tools, and some funding for your classroom. I work over at NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, as an education outreach specialist. And I'm just going to show you some cool tools that you can use that relate to climate change and also some funding that you can apply for as well. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'll start with a little poll, and I don't necessarily, we might not have too big of an audience now, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip this section of the poll. But if those of you who are in the audience live, if you don't mind just doing some introductions in the chat, kind of your name, school, what you teach, what you want to get out of this session, whether you teach any climate change stuff, and what you want to learn more about. So I'll give you just a few seconds of wait time to see if anyone wants to just introduce yourself, or you can come off mute too and introduce yourself too if you feel comfortable.
Hi, would you mind if I just introduce you really quickly?
Sure.
Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the 10th annual I Teach 808 Empowering Hawaii's Teachers in Technology Conference, sponsored by the Augustine Educational Foundation and Sacred Hearts Academy, Honolulu. My name is Carrie Pendas, and I'll be facilitating this session. We're so honored to have Leon Geschwind.
Geschwind, yep, you got it.
Woo! Join us today and share his expertise through a 90-minute presentation. Please be aware that we'll be recording this session. If you don't like being recorded, you may consider turning off your camera during the session or reviewing the recording afterwards. The recording will be made available on YouTube and shared on iTeach 808's website a week later. Would you mind saying the title for me? Would you say the title of your presentation, sir?
Sure, of course. I'll go back a couple slides. So it's Attention, NOAA Climate Change Tools and Funding for Your Classroom.
Thank you. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to Leon Geschwind.
Right, thanks so much for the invitation. As I said earlier, I'm Leon. I work over at the NOAA Inouye Regional Center, which is located on Ford Island, on the island of Oahu, as an education outreach specialist. And we'll show you some cool tools and some funding that you can use in your classroom. So let's go ahead and skip. If anyone wants to do introductions, you can go ahead and type that information to a chat. I'd love to hear what everyone is interested in, what you want to get out of this session. So feel free to type that in at your leisure. And at any time, feel free to come off mute and interrupt and ask questions. This is meant to be interactive. I don't want to have this be a monologue. So please do interrupt if you have any questions. So I got a quick poll for you, and you can either go ahead and fill out that online or just also type into the chat. What's the first thing that you come to mind when you think of NOAA? And I'm finally seeing the chat. I do see your chat, Joyce. So welcome. And yes, we'll definitely talk about funding and some hands-on activities. So weather, yeah. So weather's a big one that people hear a lot about. Anything else that come to mind? Weather, oceans. All right, you got the two really big ones there. So I'm going to show you just to kind of give you a flavor of what NOAA does here in, especially here in Hawaii. I have a little quick promo video. Tell me if the sound is coming across okay. Give me a thumbs up if the audio is playing for you.
Yes, I could hear the audio.
Okay, terrific.
Actually, I can't hear the audio now.
Oh, okay. Well, I can do some director's cut. So there's humpback whales that NOAA used to disentangle, some deep sea explorations with remotely operated vehicles that NOAA has aboard its ships. So it really does a ton of things, like you mentioned, not only weather and oceans, but a big part of it is studying climate, what's going on with our coasts. We also have NOAA satellites that connect to the weather systems that we see. We have sanctuaries that we manage and protect. And of course, what I'm really most interested in is getting the word out to teachers and other individuals through education. All right, so this is sort of a nice kind of one NOAA picture that kind of encapsulates what NOAA does. So you see our NOAA ships located here. We have hurricane hunters that actually fly through hurricanes to get a better idea of wind speed and use them to better predict where hurricanes might land. We have NOAA fisheries vessels. We have studying humpback whales, coral reefs, better managing our fisheries. So kind of a wide variety of what NOAA does, everything really from the surface of the sun to the depths of the ocean and focusing on science, service, and stewardship. All right, so this is kind of a quick overview of the types of things that I'll talk about today. I'll talk a bit about different online tools. So I'll highlight these 3 or 4 that are located here. I'll go over some funding opportunities, and I'll talk about kind of ways that you can get involved, whether it be some student ways, teachers, or also families as well too. So again, stop me, interrupt me. We have an intimate group here, so there's no, don't be shy about stopping and interrupting if you have any questions at any point. Is there anything on here that you don't see that maybe you want to learn more about? I'm happy to go on that as well. I can talk really about anything in the NOAA education portfolio.
Since we have a smaller group at the time, would you have time to go through all of them?
Yeah, I can definitely go through all this content for sure. And you can stop me. This is meant to be interactive too. So as I go through these, I'll put some things in the chat and you can kind of search along with me. Yeah, we'll get to the photo contest. Age of the photo contest, I can tell you right now, is age 5th through 12th grade. So we'll address that in a little bit. But yeah, I can definitely get through all this content in an hour and a half. So this is kind of a nice snapshot of NOAA, a single infographic that shows you everything from what happens with our 16 satellites up in the sky all the way to, like I said, the surface of the sun where the satellites are, all the way down to the depths of our ocean where our ROVs, or remotely operated vehicles, dive, and kind of what NOAA entails. Here in Hawaii, we have about 600 to 700 NOAA staff located at the NOAA Regional Center. We used to be scattered throughout Hawaii, on Oahu, I should say, but we consolidated and most of the NOAA staff are out at Ford Island. We still have the Weather Forecasting Office, which is located at the University of Hawaii, but predominantly most of our stuff is on Ford Island. All right, so we'll do some online tools first. So have any of you heard of Science on a Sphere before, or have seen Science on a Sphere? You haven't? There's a little.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
Awesome. Oh, I see Diana. All right. At Bishop Museum. Yes. So we do have, there is one located at Bishop Museum. There's also one located on Oahu at the NOAA Regional Center at our NOAA facility. If you're on the Big Island, there's one at oh geez, I'm drawing a blank, at the Imilo Astronomy Center. And then we also have one at the American Samoa Ocean Center, which is part of NOAA. So we have 4 in the Pacific Islands region. So it's a 6-foot animated globe made of carbon fiber, and it projects 3D image. It basically projects images onto this globe, and you can look at anything from climate change to ocean circulation to weather. Over 700 plus data sets on there. So you have to visit either one of these places to get it, or if you don't happen to have something close by, you can actually download it and get it either on your phone or on your tablet. So there's a little QR code there. I'll put this in the chat just so people can, oops, see if I can bring this up at the same point too. Or you can scan the kind of QR code, but it's a great way of kind of bringing this global view that you can have in the palm of your hands. So I'll give you a quick demo of it if I can kind of bring it up quickly. And while I'm doing that, does anyone have any questions? Or has anyone used the Science on a Sphere mobile version before? You haven't used it? Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for typing in the chat. It's great to get feedback. Or again, like I said, you can unmute. So I have kind of a desktop version that we use for an exhibit mode. I want to see if I can switch my screen so you guys can see this. 1 second here. I think it's on my secondary screen, unfortunately. Okay, so stop share. And sorry, just give me 1 second, just so I can show you guys so you can get a feel for the type of content that's on here. Just gonna switch my screens briefly. And tell me if you guys can see the screen now. You see the screen with the big globe on it now?
Yes.
All right, cool. So this is kind of a version of what you'll see on the iPad. And so maybe if people have some interest, you can, let's do a little exploration here. Should we look at some climate stuff, or is there anything that is of interest to folks? You can bring up these climate models if you want. Not hearing anything from the audience, but if there's anything of interest that you see as I scroll down, please let me know and I'm happy to explore it. Since this is a topic on climate, I'm going to bring up a couple of climate models. So I'll bring up one of them here and a couple of features just to orient with you as you might explore this tool. So here's the kind of date on there going to the future of climate models. And there's a lot of variability of climate kind of going up and down. This is surface temperature and how much warmer or cooler it is compared to the average. There's some neat tools that you can use. You can overlay kind of country lines and border lines, capital cities to orient yourself a little bit better. There's a measuring tool. So you can measure from one place to another. So, I mean, I think it might be, depending on your student body, you can zoom in and out, and you can take Oahu and measure it from one place to the other. Go to the Big Island, see how far that is, a couple 100 miles. And then there's a really cool, under tools section, an analyze tool. So you can either analyze by point, you can take a point somewhere, see if we go to Texas somewhere, and it tells you its actual temperature as it varies over time. You can pause it and you can make some comparisons. So for example, if we were to compare Hawaii, say right now, we'll go back in time to 2022 and look at the temperature there. Right, so it's 1.4 degrees kind of warmer than average, and then we'll play it out to 2100. Now it's 2.9. So you can basically do some studies of analysis of how temperatures change over time in this kind of visual manner, which is kind of neat. Under tools, you can do other things. Not only can you analyze by point, you can take a specific area and draw and analyze it that way. So there's a lot of neat things that kids can kind of learn about on averages and whatnot as they explore data. So most of the data sets that have any kind of numerical value, whether it be temperatures, mainly temperatures are the ones that actually have this kind of analyze tool that's on there. So this is kind of a flavor of what it might look like in Hawaii, on average about 2.3 degrees Fahrenheit warmer by 2100 in this kind of climate model. And there's a bunch of different climate models that people can look at. If you want to know exactly what you're looking at, there's a little I button and that pops up some information that gives you more details there too. All right, any questions or comments on kind of this? There's some movies that you can play. So there's a whole wide range of different data sets. The one I'm showing you here is a little bit more of a beefier version because it's for the desktop, but you'll see kind of a similar layout for the mobile version, which again is absolutely free to use. All right. Oh, one other item, there is a tours section too that takes you through different types of tours. And so it's kind of a click through thing on, oh, how do you be a data visualization expert? And it advances you through this section that lets you explore data, but does it in a more guided fashion. So these are just some of the tools on Science on a Sphere mobile. Any questions? I'm gonna go ahead and quit out of this. And if we have some time later on, we can explore this a bit in more detail. Quit. And let me stop sharing and then just switch my screens again. All right, you guys seeing the right screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so some other, oops, somehow moved everybody here. Some other activities that come with Science on a Sphere mobile. You know, kids are not interested in just looking at, well, a lot of my kids like looking at screens and stuff, but there's a nice tactile version of some of this content. So these paper globe cutouts that you can actually use scissors to cut these things out, put them on a little pedestal, and then get more information about it too. So these two examples are looking at two climate scenarios, one of kind of heavily fossil fuel developed, what it might look like in the future. And there's one kind of as a, if we cut emissions a lot, so you can kind of compare the globe side by side. So these are all located at these links that are on here, and I'll provide this with you as well too. If you can't get to it and you want to explore while we're talking, also paste this content in the chat as well too. Where did my chat go? There we go. All right, so that's the paper globes. So another tool, so Science on a Sphere Mobile is one of our tools that I want to bring up. Another one that's really neat because you can zoom in on your individual location. And I'm going to go ahead and type this information in the chat because I want everybody to look at this sea level rise viewer. And you can search basically anywhere throughout the United States and also the territories as well too. So there's the bar, and if you're able to, you can click on that link and open it up, and I'll kind of guide you through how to use this, and then we'll have some time to kind of explore as well too. All right, so hopefully you can still see my screen. I've opened up the sea level rise viewer. You know, if you're seeing that okay, you can hit get started on it and then zoom into your location. And you'll notice a few things. You can start raising sea level and zoom to either if you live near the coast or if you want to live near, or if you want to go to like your favorite beach and see how it might be impacted. So I'm actually around the Kaka'ako area, like I'm right around there. And you get a feeling for kind of what the impacts might be, right? So right around that 3 to 4 foot threshold, we kind of see a big increase. Like I'm right around here. So if everyone can maybe do that for a second, we can explore this a little bit. And if you want to type into your chat some of the things that you found out while exploring, that would be neat to kind of share with the group. Once you've gotten a chance to do that, there's another tab called local scenarios. And if you click on that, there's a little tutorial that can guide you through later on, but I'm just going to do it, guide you through right now. If you zoom back out, you can see there's a couple of these little local scenario icons here. And you want to click on the one that's closest to your location, right? Because it's sea level rise, there's sort of a baseline, right? And that's dependent on different tide levels. So if you click on this one, because this is close to where I am, or wherever you are, if you're closer to Kaneohe, you want to click on that one. And that will bring up different scenarios, right? First one, we just looked at sea level rise, but what does that sea level rise actually mean? And so there are these different projections that are put out there. The most recent ones actually got put out last year, where if we assume like kind of intermediate high, so middle of the road, what would it look like in the year, say 2100, right? And so actually, I usually don't go that far out. I might go out to 2060 or 2080. Let's go out to 2080, which is about 60 years from now. So it's when your kids are sort of hitting, well, my kids, I got little kids hitting retirement and what it might look like in their area. So again, zooming back to where I'm located, you can type in an address too to zoom you directly there. So you can see the impacts, like if we do nothing, again, this is just a static bathtub model, so it's not considering impacts of storm surge or impacts of other types of flooding. This is just plain sea level rise, so it's sort of a baseline, and we're not doing anything to kind of manage the coast, but it gives you an idea of like how really threatened a lot of our coastal areas are to these impacts. So you can see the impacts there. You can switch it around. You can, if you want to view by year, like, okay, I want to look out. I'm really interested in the year 2060, for example, right? And I want to know, okay, at high scenario, that's about 2 feet. So about 2 to 3 feet, and you can see the impacts there. So you can do a lot of what if games, either searching by scenario or searching by year in terms of the impacts on your location. Anybody want to share what they found out in their little searching, or if anybody got a chance to do it?
Leon,
Hey, Dan.
it's Diane. How
Hi.
did you get to? Because I have a really small old computer. How
Yeah.
did you get to that where you are right now?
Okay, so it opens up. No, it's a great question. It opens up with this regular sea level rise thing, and then you want to click on local scenarios tab.
Okay.
And then the key there is to find this little icon here that indicates that's closest to your area. So I clicked on this gray one. I zoomed out. So it's you're probably zoomed in too much. So you want to zoom out. And you can see if I compare Kaneohe and Honolulu, you see the slight difference, like it went from 1.87 to 1.90. So really minor differences, because there's not that sort of huge kind of tidal component here as much. If you go to the mainland, you'll see some huge changes depending on the location that you pick, right? Again, this is a national level viewer, so you can make comparisons here locally, or you can make them all the way to a location on the mainland where they're experiencing a lot of sea level rise, especially in the southeast.
Okay, thank you. Because I just, when you just said I might be zoomed in too much, I was, so I like reduced my screen. There it was. Okay, thank
Perfect.
you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Laurel, I see your question. Does it work on iPads? Yes, it should work on iPads. It works on phones, it works on all devices. You might not get a lot of the features on phones. Like I think you might just be stuck here just because there's not enough screen real estate, but it should work on everything, and it should, you just might not have all the features available. Great questions. There are a number of other categories. I'm not going to go through them just for time's sake, but if we do want to explore this later on, I kind of want to give you guys a bunch of tools, and then if we have time later on, you'll see kind of the menu, and then we can dive into specific foods and dig in a bit more. So that's kind of tool number 2, the Sea Level Rise Viewer. Let's see, let me go back to the presentation just to see what else to talk about. The other big one that I want to talk about that actually includes some of the sea level rise stuff is the Coastal Flood Exposure Mapper. And I'm going to type that in the chat for you just so you can get it easier, or you can just type in Coastal Flood Exposure Mapper and it should come up. All right, let me type it in the chat. And I'll bring it over here. Oh, too many windows open here. All right, so the Coastal Flood Exposure Mapper. And this is really neat for looking at the impact of not only different impacts, but looking at them from a societal or how it affects infrastructure as well too. So I'll give you a second just to open that up. Excuse me. The first thing you want to do is you want to toggle open your little layer selector here. This is where all the magic happens, and it's ironically this little tiny thing in the bottom left-hand corner. To open that up, find your address, or just zoom to your location. And if anyone wants me to zoom to a particular place, I'm happy to use anyone's example as well too. So just shout out like, oh, I want to look here, I want to look there. But I'll zoom in, not if I don't hear anything, I'll kind of zoom into where I am again. And you can see this coastal flood hazard composite. In terms of just navigating around, the legends down here, so it tells you what you're looking at. So the redder it is, the more hazard zones are in your specific area. Coastal flood hazard zones. You can change the base map, so if you want to see satellite imagery and overlay that. You can change things like opacity, so you want to be able to see through things, you can change these sliders. And then you want to know what it is, it gives you information on the information, on the data that you're looking at. So this is a composite. So I actually live around here. So if I kind of click the area where I live here, I'm in 6 different hazard zones. So storm surge, I would be impacted by storm surge category 1, 2, and 3. I'm in a tsunami run-up zone and a FEMA flood zone. So a lot of risk associated with where I'm located. The real power in it, again, if you don't want to look at all the composites, you want to look at something specific, like sea level rise is on here again. If you want to look at storm surge and look at the impacts depending on what the category is. So we'll go a category 2 storm. And again, your legend popping up tells you what's going to be impacted, things that are less than 3 feet of ground, greater than 3 feet, etc. But the real power in this is you can overlay other types of data. So for example, maybe one that you're really interested in is critical facilities, because that includes schools. I'm going to turn that layer on, close some buttons in here. So all these little things that pop up are where, so here's fire stations. If you scroll around, let's see if I can find some schools. Zoom in. Right, so there's Alawai Elementary School. And so you can see Alawai Elementary School is in an area that would be impacted by storm surge that's greater than 3 feet above the ground in a category 2 storm. Right. There's all the labels, so the legend really is your friend there. So if you want to see like sea level rise, again, going back to sea level rise and its impacts, there's a slider here. 3 feet, 3 to 4 feet is what we're predicting. So you can see, yes, Aloha Elementary is in that 3-foot rise of sea level, which might happen by, 2080, 2100. So that's the real power in this data set is you can overlay things, not only critical facilities, you can also overlay things like, let's see, the elderly population or, poverty. You hear a lot of times that climate change disproportionately impacts areas that are poorer. So you can kind of look at the relationship between hazards and are they really impacting areas that are poor, with the exception of, a lot of coastlines, certain coastlines, might be more wealthy, but in other areas, you might see the impact on how poverty is connected. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can kind of explore. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes to just explore that on your own and let me know if you have any questions as you're exploring or have any aha moments that you want to share with the group.
Leon, would you be able to carve out some time in your busy schedule to give like a 30-minute, I would say, training to classrooms?
Yeah,
For
I can do
something like
stuff like
this,
that.
just like have, just like this, just to let the kids have fun and explore.
Yeah, there's
Awesome.
a on the site as well. If you just go to Coastal Flood Exposure Mapper, there's a opening site, and we created a. So this is kind of like the launch site, and there's also a 2.5 minute like how the tool works kind of video, which
Oh, okay.
basically steps people through it. So you can, it gives you a kind of quick,
Check out these maps that show how flooding may impact people, places, and natural resources in a region. Take 2 minutes to see how easy it is to use the Coastal Flood Exposure Mapper to create and share maps to engage your community.
Okay.
First,
All right.
type in your address or location.
So anyway, I didn't get into
Sorry.
a lot of it, but yeah, I'm more than happy to do that stuff as well. I didn't show you some of the main features is like, so say you wanted to overlay again, critical facilities and sea level rise as an example, and you have the ability to save these maps, which is really cool. So you can do a lot of stuff. And then number one, there are a couple of features here. There's a little button down here, which is share the map. So you copy this thing, and then it provides a unique URL that takes you to this thing. So if I paste this in the chat, you guys will jump directly to this scene that I'm looking at. So you can have kids do their own explorations and kind of share with one another. They can send you the links and you can bring it up on the screen depending on what they're searching. So that's kind of a powerful feature. The save map also is really cool too. So you can save a number of different maps. So I'm interested in critical facilities for sea level rise. Well, I also want to see it for storm surge for category 2, for example. And I want to save that map. So I've saved a couple of maps, and then once I go under save map, you can actually export these things. You can download them as images, as legends. You can share a whole collection of things with someone else. So really, really powerful tools that let you not only explore, but let you save and capture these images for, presentations or just sharing with others. So hopefully that at least gives you an overview. Dan, I pointed to some of those other resources, but yeah, if you're still getting lost in there, I'm more than happy to kind of do a quick demo.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. These are wonderful questions. Did anyone else have any like aha moments or questions that came up while you were exploring? I'm interested in development patterns, what that might do. So you can only turn on 2 layers, just so you know. Otherwise, it gets just so busy. And then like storm surge, like I would take the opacity down a little bit so I can see through that layer. Right. So like, where's the development happening and how that's going to impact storm surge? So there's a lot of neat like things to explore here. There's also ecosystem exposure, right? Like how are wetlands being impacted, or how are potential pollution sources being impacted, right? So, right, if you're getting storm surge, are areas where their pollution sources, are they going to be exposed, and what might be the issues around that? So a lot of, again, tons of like what if questions can be asked using this tool. So I often use the sea level rise tool and this in conjunction, because the sea level rise tool, sea level rise viewer, lets you kind of zoom in and do these scenarios depending on what year. And once you found that appropriate sea level rise, then you can apply it here. And then you can add on storm surge and explore some of the other hazards, high tide flooding. All right, I'm not hearing any questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. But hopefully that was some fun exploration for you. So let me get back to the presentation here. But I also have my children here as well too. So if you hear anything in the background, that's them. Why did I take a picture of you? She's asking, why did I take a picture of them? So this is just, you know, some of the science behind what's happening with sea level rise. And this is like why I do this stuff. I got 2 kids, and you know, they love the beach and stuff. And so this is the why. All right, another site, again, I'm not going to go into depth on this site, but this is another great site that has hands-on stuff that lets you use data, well, as it says, using real data in the classroom, called Data in the Classroom. And I'll open this up just really quick, just to give you a sense of the different things. There's an El Nino sea level mod. This is not sea level rise, it's just general sea level. Coral bleaching, I'll do coral bleaching because we haven't explored that yet. And the way the module works basically is it has these different levels, from at the very beginning, just sort of making observations, to level 1, right? So you can kind of go through this, and it gives you some questions all the way up to level 5, which actually lets you design your own investigation. So it gives you some guided questions, and then it tells you the types of data that you might need to use to figure out, well, how is ocean temperatures affecting the health of corals near a certain area? So it opens up live NOAA data that you can use to delve in a bit more to answer specific questions that students might have. So it's designed to kind of scaffold over time, and there's a whole teacher's guide and everything. So this is, again, a resource that you can use. I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but we'll have some time at the end and we can come back, and depending on everyone's interest, we can explore things in more detail. But any questions, just very briefly, on data in the classroom? So this is a current snapshot right now of degree heating weeks, which is how much warmer a certain area is. So if it's 1 degree higher than normal and it's that way for 3 weeks, then it's 3 degree heating weeks, 1 times 3. So it's basically a measure of the thermal threshold that these corals can take before they start to bleach. Okay.
Leon,
Oh, yes.
does the teacher's guide tab have worksheets, or what's in that?
Yeah, let's open it up. So there's a bunch of student worksheets that are accompanied with it. So I think they can actually fill it out online, or you can download the PDF. So it's guided worksheets that correspond to each of the different levels. And then it has the different data tools, and then the connections with NGSS, the Next Generation Science Standards.
Thank you.
No, great question. Thank you. Anyone interrupt me anytime, right? If I'm going too fast or anything. I love these questions and being a lot more interactive. Okay, Anna, sorry. All right, if there aren't any questions on, we can go into a lot. Ocean acidification is one of the newer modules. That's more high school. The coral bleaching, sea level, El Nino are more middle school. And they each go into detail on what grades they're appropriate for. All right, this is just a question to kind of just stop here. Or what would help you better teach about climate change in your classroom? Either some of the tools that you've seen, or just a point to stop and have some discussion in case anyone has any thoughts that they want to share with the group. All right. Tried my teacher wait time. Again, I didn't know how big the audience was, but if there are a lot of folks, I use Poll Everywhere. If you haven't used Poll Everywhere, I'm sure a lot of you are pros of all these audience engagement things, but they have it's free for teachers for up to 40 students. And if you're in a really big audience, if people have questions, they can type it in and then others can upvote it. So it's a great way if you have a really large audience, say you're presenting to 100 or a couple hundred people, and then you can kind of see the top questions that rise up. So another tech tool that I'll throw in there, not related to climate change or anything, but related to kind of how to do a good presentation if you have a big audience. So if you do have questions, feel free to go to that and type it in if you don't feel comfortable putting it in the chat, and we can play with that as well too at the end. All right, funding, which maybe I saw a couple of things in the chat earlier, like, oh, are you going to tell us about funding? And so yes, we are here to tell you about how you can, a couple of funding sources and ways that you can integrate into your classroom. So I'm going to start big, and then I'm going to move down in scale, right? So how many of you have heard of BWET before? NOAA BWET, Bay Watershed Education and Training. Can I get just some response in the chat, or yes, or however you feel comfortable responding? I want to get an idea of, is this new to you, or have you heard of it before? So I got one no, one
Is
yes.
this the same thing as Project Wet?
No, it is not. I think Project Wet might have been funded by BWET, but Project Wet's a different thing. This is a funding source. Project Wet is a project that's done. This is money that they give to do hands-on environmental, get your feet wet projects. Okay, awesome. So it is new to most people, new to a couple of people. So the BWET program, it's a great way. And the reason I'm bringing up with teachers is because schools can apply for it. Schools have been funded in the past, but it's open to any, as you can see there in these kind of bullet points, any K through 12 schools, nonprofits, state government agencies, Indian tribal governments. The funding is a pretty good chunk of change. It's 50 to 150K over a maximum of 2 years. It's probably pretty late in terms of applying this year, but this is around when the deadlines are due. So this is due in 10 days. It is a sizable application, right? You're writing, there's a whole budget narrative, and you're writing 30 pages or something. You have to get letters of support. And it's really focused on, like I said earlier, kind of environmental education and getting your feet, getting the kids into the field, right? To kind of explore the ahupua. Is one of the main things, with a focus on earth science, climate science, and a new category of indigenous science as well too. So I encourage you to check it out now. You can kind of see what it entails, but if your school is interested in doing this kind of stuff, please, I do encourage you to apply. So any questions on BWET? How extensive is the reporting? I guess it depends. There's always like, well, what are you comparing it to, right? And so there is reporting that has to come in, I think, on I believe it's quarterly or semi-annual. Like how many, like there's the usual bean counting things, how many numbers you've reached, how this or that. And so it's not a huge level of effort. When I was at the Bishop Museum, prior to working at NOAA, we had a BWET grant, and so we did some stuff with that too. So it's not huge, but it is a federal grant, and so right, if you're comparing it to like foundation grants, like Hawaii Community Foundation, it's much more than that, but it's much less than, say, a big National Science Foundation grant. So, right, it's par for the money that you get in terms of federal grants, but I think it might be semi-annual and a big annual report, if I remember correctly. Any other questions? Great questions. All right, so we're going to take something from, this is also at the school level, but that one was like a much bigger scale, and we're going to move to the Ocean Guardian School Program. Now, how many of you have heard of Ocean Guardian Schools? Type into the chat, that would be great. All right, so it's new for some of you too, which is wonderful. All right, so Ocean Guardian School Program, again, the target audience is pre-K through 12. It's a lot, Matt, in terms of like the size of the application. I think it's like 6 or 7 pages. It's much easier to apply for. And it's about doing hands-on stewardship projects, either usually at the school level, like multiple classrooms or school level. You can Google, I'll bring up the site in case you want to check it out while I'm talking. Go to the next slide. There are 5 different project pathways, and you can read it on the screen. I'm not going to read it to you. Let me know if any of those ring a bell. I will highlight the one area that hasn't gotten a lot of applications. So I would encourage you, if, they also look at, like any grant, geographic distribution, as well as the type of project pathways. So the energy and ocean health domain really hasn't gotten a lot of applications in the past. So I would encourage you to apply for that if that's something that you're interested in, focused on. Let me just see something real fast. See what else I'm supposed to highlight here. Typically, like I said, it's 7 pages long, 1 page of budget. We typically fund in the range of 3 to 5 schools across the various islands. And then in terms of funding, you can see there, what's really neat about this funding is that it's a lot of the Hawaii Community Foundation grants or smaller grants are like 1-year grants and then you're done. But this grant has the potential for sustained funding over a period of 5 years. And the reason they did that is they did some evaluation, and that's kind of like the sweet spot where a program is kind of self-sustained. So I think the figure is like 50, I can't remember exactly, 50 to 70% of folks that go through the 5 years of funding then run this thing on their own without any additional funding. So you can get up to $4,000 per year for years 1 to 3, and then it tapers off in year 4 and 5. So a total of, what is that, 12, 14, half, $15,500. Pretty good chunk of change. Again, this is just at the school level. Currently, if you're interested, we have schools at, and if you want to talk to them, Kapa'a High School on Kauai, Kaimuki Middle School, Kailua Elementary, Kapolei High School, and Mililani High School just got funded this year. So those are the schools that have active grants. Questions on Ocean Guardian? The application right now isn't, as you see on the site, it's not open right now, but I wanted to give you a heads up, and it does open in April of 23 and it closes in June. So there's about a 2-month time period where you can apply. And I realize that's kind of the end of school, but that just happened the way the funding worked for this grant. So you can get a copy of if you're interested, I can send you a copy of the previous application. It won't be identical, but probably pretty similar if you want to get a head start on that. Any questions on Ocean Guardian? These are just some schools that have gotten it. Oh, I'm sorry. This is joining the Ocean Guardian program also gives you access to this, what they call Pacific Exchange Network. So there's coordinators and Ocean Guardian schools in Alaska, American Samoa, Guam, and Hawaii. And so it's a neat way of kind of doing this intercultural exchange virtually and maybe in person as well too, if there's funding. They're including partners in Palau and expanding also to CNMI, the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas Islands. And so it's just a neat way for students to connect with one another throughout the Pacific Islands region. So it's kind of neat. From anything from virtual school exchanges to pen pal activities and other types of activities to connect the Ocean Guardian schools together. That's another big benefit of the program. I just want to show you a flavor of one of the, no pun intended, one of the current Ocean Guardian recipients. This is Kaimuki Middle School. They did a climate conscious cuisine as a piece of one of their grants. So they actually, the kids developed different recipes that were climate conscious, and then made them and serve them to their parents or to the community. Kind of neat. All right, questions on that before I go on to the next paid thing. So we got BWET, 50K to 150K over a couple of years. We have Ocean Guardian, which is about 4,000 first 3 years, and then trickles down. So about 15K over 5 years. If you continually get renewed, you have to keep applying year after year. And now we're going to go to kind of the individual level. But before we do, does anyone have any questions so far on funding? I'm sure a lot of people are interested in funding. All right, I'm not hearing anything. So I'm going to go on to our final funding opportunity, and this is on an individual basis. This past year, we ran a pilot program of climate educator fellows that we had throughout the state of Hawaii. We had 6 of them. We still have 6 of them. They're putting on these climate chats, which I'll talk about a little later on. And you basically get funding to develop some curriculum. You can see some of the activities, right? So developing some lessons that then align to a site visit. So if you're going to bring your kids out to like the NOAA Regional Center or some of the other NOAA sites throughout the islands, this is a way to actually get paid for and write some pre and post curriculum that then other teachers can use for their visit. So you can see some of the activities, some lending kit testing, continuing to build our community of practice on climate change, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then we also have a big spring 2024 climate teacher workshop that we're doing in conjunction with NASA and the National Park Service. So you would help design and participate in that as well. And that spring 24 contest, just to see how all these different pieces are tied together. The reason we kind of do that, give you a lot of the tools and the information that you need, and then you can apply for the Ocean Guardian grant, which happens soon after. So the timing is there purposely so that you can jump into some of the ideas that you want to implement and apply for a grant to get funding. Questions, comments? Oh, here's I put these after each thing, not knowing how big our group was, but let me know if anyone has any questions so far. I'm going to try to get through the rest of it, and then we can go and revisit some of these sections that you guys are interested in. Does that sound like a okay plan? All right, see thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, now we're going to go to getting involved. Right? How do you get involved? We'll start with students, and then I'll move to teachers and families. So someone asked earlier, like photo contest. So we have this big photo contest open through grades 5th through 12th grade. This is a nationwide contest, but we will have recognition for each of the different regions. So there's the Pacific Islands region, which we're a part of. And so if you can, I'll open the thing up and I'll put it in the chat in case you want to check it out while I talk. But basically it's, you take a photo of number 1, impacts of climate change. So there's different categories of nature, water, weather, society. I'll actually open up the photo contest so you can see what it looks like. It's an ArcGIS Survey 123. So if you guys aren't familiar with that, that's also a really cool tool to use that I think everyone has access to ArcGIS. And it's kind of like Google Forms on steroids, and I'll show you why. Tells you about who can enter. So 5th through 12th grade, you can see what it is, the photos describing climate change impacts or resilience, right? So examples of resilience. So it doesn't have to be an impact that you're seeing, but what's the type of resilience that's going on? So this is kind of just information describing. The neat thing is you can, have these maps to drop where the photo was taken, which is kind of neat. Here are the different categories, like I mentioned earlier, and gives you examples of each of them. Again, the new category this year is resilience, right? These actions that are being taken to increase community resilience. And it gives you some examples too, right? Green transportation, clean energy, et cetera, et cetera. People upload it and then they agree to some stuff and then they submit it. So, not too different from Google Forms, except it does have this map feature. And if you actually take a picture in the field with it, you can do the whole thing and it uses your phone's location to upload the information. So it's if you're collecting any location data for things, this is kind of a neat feature. We haven't had any entries yet from Hawaii, so I do encourage your students to enter. All of the winners, like it says in this thing, will be featured at the different NOAA facilities. So we'll actually have the kids post photographs printed out and up at the NOAA Regional Center. So for viewing, and I'll also throw in for the winning team, the winning entrant, their class will get a free field trip out to the NOAA Regional Center. I'll pay for the bus and everything. So I haven't written that in, but I will add that in my next push. Any questions about student photo contest? Yeah, this is a new thing we're doing this year. It was just the West region last year, kind of California to Colorado range. And this year it's nationwide, but including the US territories, the US API, yeah, so, and someone asked abroad, oh, I'm stationed abroad, can I do it? Sure, right, so we're pretty open. All right, not hearing anything, I'm gonna move on. Another kind of neat thing for kids that just came out, we have this climate resilience in your community activity book. The reason I kind of bring this up is it's sort of geared for a national level, but we have some funding to work with some teachers to localize it to Hawaii. So if you're interested in being a tester of this, which actually would probably happen in the April timeframe, please let me know. I'll have a form at the end and you can kind of indicate it in the comment section. We'll have a little stipend if you just sort of test it with your classroom, right? So that's the climate activity booklet. I'll give you a flavor of what that is. We have, it's downloadable on the site and we can actually give you booklet copies as well too. We have a limited number of booklet copies. So this is kind of what the booklet looks like. The main parts are, right, there's some how you can explore your community and look at kind of community resilience. The big part that we're kind of localizing is exploring the seasons, right? This is more focused on Alaska, but how do we look at the seasons and how climate change is impacting in Hawaii? So this is the big part that's changing. Scrolling down some other things, they have Science on a Sphere, which we talked about earlier, Science on a Sphere mobile. So you see how a lot of the products are really integrated with one another. Some ideas for actions, etc. Questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to move to, this is students and teachers, but if you haven't been out to the NOAA Regional Center, we are now open for business in terms of taking school groups. People ask, is there any charge to come to the facility? No, we're a federal facility, so it's free to bring your students out. We also have money for Title I schools to pay for your buses. So if you're a Title I school, it's pretty much free to come out. So how do you do it? This is my website, which isn't the prettiest, but it's functional. There's a visits and tours section. And under that, long story short, it's a 2-hour visit. There's a little booking availability form where you can click through. So you got to click through it and then you see, oh, so there's one in March, a couple of openings here. And then you just make your booking here. And then, so that's just to get the preliminary information that I can put a hold on it. And then there's a more detailed form that you fill out here. So it's not the most elegant, but this will get you all the information that we need to see whether or not we can book you up. If you want to make bookings outside of those Monday and Thursday dates, it's possible, but it might take a bit longer because those are the dates we've designated where we have staff on hand to give tours. If any of you are interested in being docents, I don't know if all of you are teachers in the classroom or if you're retired, but we're going to be doing some docent things coming up to train people to be volunteers to at different steps take the kids around, to actually lead presentations, to actually develop your own tours as well too. So what will you see at the Sphere? So Science on a Sphere you saw. We have the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, 24/7 operation, looking at tsunamis. fish or protected species labs. So they do necropsies, which are like autopsies on sea turtles and monk seals to explore that. And then if a NOAA ship is in port, which is unfortunately not that frequently. All right, any questions on the NOAA Regional Center? We'll also be doing virtual tours as well too. So we're building up some virtual tours. Remind me later on if we have some time, be happy to take you on a very quick virtual tour of the building. It's got some really neat history. It's 2 World War II hangars, 1 and 2 kind of put together, and then with this central atrium. So there's about, like I mentioned earlier, about 600, 700 NOAA staff that work out at the IRC. Questions, comments? I realize I'm putting a lot out there, but hopefully we'll get now getting involved as teachers. All right. So one thing that some of you might have already joined, we do have an online climate change community of practice. Right now, there's over 100 people. It's through a platform called What School Could Be. Let me just type this in the chat real fast. In case you're not a member, you can join right now. I'll show you what it looks like. And others who are members can join as well too. Oh, it's making me join. I think I logged under the wrong. Let's try this one. Just open it under a different profile. It should take me to the actual screen. No, here we go. So it's, it's kind of a Facebook type platform, but without all the creepy ads. So you can see we've highlighted our student photo contest. Another really neat thing is we highlight educators doing cool climate stuff. We try to do it on a monthly basis. So you can see all the featured educators that are on there. Another thing that we have is we have these climate chats. So we had one on Hawaiian humpback whales and climate change that happened, what was that, just 4 days ago. Our next one we're doing on honu, the Hawaiian green sea turtle, and how it might be impacted with climate change. We did one on corals recently. So lots of different activities. And if you have things to post, like people are posting other climate related content, you're more than welcome to post it as well too. So lots of cool things in a great community to kind of be a part of. Any questions on the climate change hui? Yeah, so this is just the sign up page. This is what you'll see to just sign up. Again, free, no ads, and then you can set all your permissions for how often you want to get notified, so you have complete control for that. Any questions? Always hard to speak to a quiet audience, but I totally understand. Oh, these are just some pictures. I forgot that I actually included some pictures in here too. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have a upcoming climate chat called The Future is Female, the Science of Honu and Climate Change. It's at this, I'll type it in the chat in case you wanna sign up. It's on Monday, February 13th, 3:30 to 4:30. And our speaker is Cam Allen, also known as AKA Turtle Nerd is what she likes to be called. She does amazing work on sea turtles and the feminization as nest temperatures get warmer. The sea turtles tend to be more female. So she'll talk about a lot of those impacts in February. This is not directly a NOAA thing, but it is very climate related. We'll be connected and we'll probably we might do a pre-field trip out to the NOAA Regional Center, or we might have some NOAA stuff that we'll talk about, but this is through MBARI, the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, in partnership with the USGS, US Geological Survey. And so they have a big Earth workshop on climate change that's happening in July of this year. So I think they pay you a stipend. I don't know if, I'm not sure if there's PD credit or not. But the neat thing about this is they give you travel funds. So those of you not on Oahu, they'll actually fly you out here, not just neighbor islands, but the territories as well too. So if you know people in American Samoa, Guam, CNMI, this is an opportunity for them, which that kind of travel funding doesn't come around very often. So I will encourage you to apply. This is just a promo for we're going to do a spring 24 climate change teacher workshop. Those of you who attended our one that we did last summer, it's not going to be entirely the same. We're going to bring in a lot of NASA resources and NPS's National Park Service. So it'll be a more holistic, not just ocean and atmosphere, but we'll have the land component and then, all of the amazing stuff that NASA has. So that'll be coming up in the spring of 24, and then there'll be funding for Ocean Guardian right after that. That's just a teaser. Questions? I think that's all I have. Oh, maybe not. Getting involved families. So stuff you want to do with your families that's coming up. So how many of you have heard of the Sanctuary Ocean Count? Counting humpback whales. It's happened for a long time. Just type in the chat real quick. I want to see who's done this. Okay, so not yet. Good. So I'll jump to the website. So they basically, whale season runs from November through May, but peak is January through March. So you can have an opportunity to register and go out and count whales like throughout the Hawaiian Islands. So I think if we go to registration, let's see. Let's register for February. I think there, then it shows you the location. Right over here, site locations. So these are all the locations where they want people to count whales just for the morning. So you go out, count whales, you count their different types of whale behavior. Is it doing a PEX lap? Is it doing a breach? And a lot of this data is then used by scientists to look at how whales migrate and look at their behavior over time. So it's a really, really fun activity to do with your families or with your students. So that's the information there. I'll put that in the chat if that's convenient. Let's see. Ocean count, you can check it out. The other thing, here's kind of what the sheet might look like that you go out to look at different types of behaviors like I talked about earlier and when they occur. And another big thing that just, they've been doing Honu count for a while. So this is similar to the whale count, except this is specifically for Honu. And you can see, and I can, like I mentioned earlier, that survey 123 form, they just released one of these for Honu count. So how many of you have seen green Honu basking on the beach? I'm going to assume everybody, but it's not necessarily a good assumption. Before you had to like send an email to them and say where you saw them, and then there was a lot. Now it's all digitized. So with your cell phone, hopefully they'll put out some QR codes and you can put in your information, see where you see it, what the behavior is, upload a picture of it. And these are all Honu that have IDs that are in them. And then hopefully, this will help the scientists kind of map their migration and behavior as well too. So hopefully the whales one goes this route as well too, going to more digital. It's just a lot easier to compile a lot of the data. So our Honu climate chat will then be followed by an on-the-ground event. I think it's going to be on February 25th, I want to say. Well, they'll be at a beach, which we'll announce during the climate chat, and we'll have turtle scientist there too, who can talk a bit more about Honu and some of what's happening with climate change and their impacts. That's my last slide. I do want to point out, let me just grab this link real fast. If any of you are interested in getting a follow-up and just being aware of kind of what's going on with NOAA in Hawaii, you might be aware NOAA is comprised of like all these different line offices, right? So there's fisheries, there's the ocean service, there's weather, there's the satellite folks, right? There are the ships and the aircraft. So they all have their own line office and their own budgets. So there are all these different places to go and get data. As the Ed and Outreach Coordinator, I'm trying to coordinate a lot of that stuff. So we're starting up kind of a mailing list to send out to people. So if you're interested, fill that out and we can keep you up to date on NOAA opportunities. And the more you fill it out, the more we can micro-target to you. So we'll only send you stuff that's relevant to your grade level or to your location, right? Instead of you getting a bunch of other stuff. So that's all I got. I got some few extra slides. I'm happy to, I can give you a virtual tour of the IRC. I'm happy to go back. Looks like we have about 18 minutes or so. We can go back and explore some of the topics that I covered in more detail. And so I'd love to hear from the crowd. I can do whatever folks are interested, or I can talk about some of those extra slides. Let me know.
So far, that's perfect timing. I just wanted to jump in and remind you that you have 15 minutes.
Perfect. This is I'll wait for people to type in the chat what you're interested in and I'll jump to that. But in the meantime, I'll talk about some other stuff. We have some coral banners that we're working on and developing a kit. They're 15 feet by 3 foot banners of Olo Walu on Maui, showing before bleaching, during, and after. So great things that you can use in your classroom. We have these coral polyps. Those of you who have 3D printers, you just type in, I think the Google search is like 3D coral polyp. I think that should bring it up. Yeah, so it's the #1 search result. And we have the actual base and top that you can print on your 3D printers. And if you have thermosensitive filament, which is really neat, it changes color when you put it in warm water. So you can kind of simulate the impact of bleaching. So this is something, there's a little educational video that you can watch, but another tool in your toolbox that you can use. And if you come to our workshops, our 3D printer was down, but the next one we'll try to give some of these away. Another great source for content, 360 video images. There's a great 360 video on Hawaiian Islands and the green sea turtles and stuff that's on there. So those of you who have VR goggles and some before and after coral pictures, this is in American Samoa, are there. And then finally, those of you looking for short videos, 3 to 5 minutes, that are really high production value, this is a great site that has a lot of content called Ocean Today. It's at a national level, but some great, well-curated content and some accompanying lessons as well in some cases. All right, that is a ton of stuff. I will share with you this presentation. So you are welcome to go back and grab any of the content, but does anyone have any questions or wonderings, or I can do a little virtual tour of the facility, but I'd like to hear what you guys are interested in first.
For the field trips, what's the maximum number of students that can?
Great question. So the lab spaces generally hold 20, 25 is kind of pushing it in some of the fisheries labs. So on those dates, we can handle up to kind of 4 rotations. Cross my fingers once I get volunteers on board. And so we're looking at max capacity of like 80 to 100. 100 is like the very upper limit. I had a group request that had 170. I was like, I can't handle 170. So 100 is pushing it, but 80 is probably more, is 100 is 25 each in a group, and that's tight. So 80 would be recommended, but I understand you have bigger class sizes, so we'll accommodate up to 100.
And when they visit, is there an area where they could eat lunch or purchase lunch?
Yes, actually, this is a perfect segue. I'll give you a little tour of the facility. See if I can find the link. So this is not up yet because it's still a work in progress. Let's see if this works. All right, so you can see this is very rough. One of our interns built this. So again, this is the two World War II hangars, the central atrium. These are little light boxes at the top, so it kind of lets in the right amount of light, so we don't have to use as much lights. It's a LEED gold certified building, so it uses 30 to 70% less energy than comparable buildings. It has a passive cooling system. So AC usually is you have an AC mounted and it goes down. Here we have it brings up seawater from deep to kind of chill air coming from the top. It goes down and then it rises up through the floors. So there's little vents in the floor and you have passive cooling going up. So it's much more quieter and much more energy efficient. All of the flushing toilets and stuff are using gray water from rainfall, etc. So let's take a look in the building. This is inside the building. This is the atrium. And so there's some different exhibits there. There is Science on a Sphere there that you see in the corner. So we close off this area with some curtains. And so it's a really nice environment there. We kind of go further. This is where my office is. There's a bunch of career banners and my office is in the corner there. But if we go down more, you'll see it on here. There is it's closed in this picture. There's a cafeteria right here. So you can buy food at the Ford Island Bistro, or you can have kids bring their food. And you can see there's a place to eat here. And then if you have a smaller group, there's a beautiful thing up on the 3rd floor that kind of overlooks the pier. That's a nice viewpoint too. Or you can eat outside as well too, although it's hot. So yes, there are places to eat. Great question. I'll just give you another flavor of, so you won't see them doing necropsies, but these are green sea turtles. And so whenever any of them dies, they do a necropsy, which is like an autopsy to figure out why they died. These are little baby ones that I believe their eggs got cooked. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what happened in this case. So they're doing their necropsies. So we'll see the space. They're not going to bring these things out, but we'll see the space. There's a fish lab area as well too. The tsunami warning center. So this is the 24/7 operation where they're monitoring tsunamis. One of these phones actually says POTUS on it. So like if there's a huge one, I don't think it actually picks up and calls Joe Biden, but gets close to the administration in terms of there's a big impact. So we'll talk about the operations that go along with the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. Here's the boat yard area. So you can see some of the NOAA boats that go out for either enforcement or like disentanglement of whales and other species. Here's our big warehouse. These happen to be during field season. So they're prepping for a journey up to Papahanaumokuakea, the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, which they do summer field camps, and they stay out there for 3-5 months at a time to look at monk seals, green sea turtles, etc. Let's see, anything else on here? Let's just go back to the warning center. This is not located at Ford Island. This is actually at UH, but this is the National Weather Service Forecasting Office. So a bunch of screens, but there are different screens that different forecasters look at in terms of whether it be wind or whether it be marine impacts or aviation impact, etc. Anyway, so that's a very quick virtual tour. We'll also give once this thing is up and running, we'll actually give virtual tours. We'll have scientists talk to the group And this software actually lets you wander around a little bit, and then we can bring everybody back to the same place and talk. So we'll give 1 hour virtual tours for people who can't come out to the IRC. So you got a sneak peek of the development of this virtual tour. We probably will be done. It won't be done until the summer. We have another intern coming this summer to hopefully finish it up. If you do have students who are into this kind of stuff, we do have the best way to get internships through NOAA science fair. We give a couple of internships to students who do NOAA related science projects. And so if any of your students enter the Hawaii State Science Fair, we give NOAA prizes, we give cash prizes, and we also give an internship opportunity to one or a couple of students. So that's the kind of internship pathway. And then we have a number of, once they reach college, we have some for freshmen and sophomores and juniors, et cetera. And we also give prizes to elementary school. So those of you not aware, there's an elementary school. It's not a science fair contest per se, but more of a science display. So I think Hawaii Academy of Science is doing that again this year. So I'll have to double check with them, but we did give out some prizes there too for elementary school students. All right, I'm going to stop on this tour. Does anyone have any questions? Actually, I didn't show you this. So this is the sea turtle lab. We won't get a chance to go here. This is why virtual is kind of cool. So this is where they have, if turtles are injured and they need to rehabilitate it, they'll have these ocean tanks. There's something wrong with this video, but you can see this turtle is in very shallow tank. There's something wrong with its buoyancy, so that it's like kind of just floating there until it gets healthy, and then they release it. And then they also have a monk seal tank, which I've personally never seen used, but this is what it looks like. There's no water in it, but I think if there's an emergency, then they have this available for monk seal tanks. All right, so that's our quick tour of our facility. It's 300,000 plus square feet, 6.5 football fields. It's a big facility, and would love to have your students come out. Any questions?
There's going to be about 5 minutes left, just a heads up.
Yeah. It's okay with you guys. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen just so I can, does anyone want to delve into anything in the last 5 minutes? Get any clarifications? You guys have asked wonderful questions. I appreciate the audio as well as in the chat. If you do need to reach me again, I guess I should put my contact information back on, which is where here. And sorry if you hear my kids in the background. I have an 8 and 4-year-old, which are feuding right now. But there's our mailing list. And you can also email me at scienceiscool@noaa.gov. That's the best way to reach me. And I'll put on our mailing list again. Join. Any last minute questions or comments?
Do we just email you directly if we're interested in doing the activity book, testing it out?
Yeah. So fill out that form. You can email me directly, but if you want to put it on the form too and put it at the end, that would be great. Otherwise, you can email me directly and say you're interested in being a beta tester for that activity book. Yeah, you can email me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, I encourage you, like if you want to visit our facility, again, it's free. Title I schools, we can pay for buses. There might be some wiggle room too, even if you're not Title I. I think if you can justify you're kind of in an area that's like being heavily impacted by climate change, if we can have some verbiage there, then we might be able to pay for your buses as well too. So really a new, we're trying to build out just, you saw kind of like the tour stops, like Science on a Sphere, Tsunami Warning Center, Fisheries Lab, and maybe a NOAA ship if it's in port. That's kind of our standard tour. I'm trying to build out a more climate themed tour that kind of weaves together like how is like kind of NOAA in everyone's day, right? And so yeah, there's been a request by the university for a sustainability tour. So we're going to look at providing that as well too. Yeah, hopefully get people up on the roof of the building to kind of explore that too, if we're able to do that, and then explore some of those other features. So we're working on customizing tours, and just take some time.
Excuse me, Leon, is
Yeah.
it possible to also embed a tour into the Pacific Tsunami Center?
To embed a tour? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
In the
Virtual one or?
in the NOAA tour?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the 4 stops generally on a tour, in case we get, people have different interests, but it's Science on a Sphere.
All right.
So kind of open with Science on a Sphere. And then we go to one of the fisheries labs. So the necropsy lab, or kind of the general fisheries lab. There's a maker lab where they have like 3D printers and like doing creative stuff. So depending on who's there. And then Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is a stop in there. So we stop there, we can talk to the tsunami scientists. You can see kids are like, what are they holding? They have pagers that actually ring when an earthquake occurs. So there's some like education on what a pager is. And then finally, if a NOAA ship is in port, if there's no NOAA ship, then we have this kind of telepresence room where we can talk about what goes on NOAA ships and whatnot. And then other categories we have marine debris thing that we have on the side, and a few other things if people are interested in. But that's all on our tour list. But the Tsunami Warning Center is definitely a stop on there.
Yay, thank you.
Of course. All right, looks like I have 2 minutes left. Any other final questions? Oh, and I will give you this presentation. I completely forgot that. You might be scrambling to take notes. Everything we create is public domain. We are funded by the taxpayer. So anything I create, I always give it to people. So I'm going to copy and paste this. Oh, where did my chat?
Yeah, thank you so much, Leon. This is Laurel. Oh, Cheryl. That was such an amazing presentation, very thorough, and such a wonderful variety of opportunities for our classroom teachers. Like that. Thank you so much. We're so excited to have NOAA with us for the first time. Yeah, there's gonna be to the attendees, there's a spreadsheet that's gonna go out. It's gonna have the slideshow links and the video links as well. So we'll be sending that out in case you wanted to get the slideshows from any of the other workshops as well. But thank you so much, Leon, for saving that presentation for us. There was so much rich information in there that it's a great thing to be able to share with our admin and our other teachers.
Terrific. Yeah, love that. And again, anyone who wants to trip out to know with their students or with teachers, we actually have Waipahu High School coming next week. So on a PD day, if you want to bring your teachers out, we're more than happy. We're here to help you guys out. So thank you again for your time. I know it's a Saturday morning, so I appreciate you guys coming as well too, knowing how much work you do during the week. So I am very appreciative of teachers, and thank you for all your great work. All right, thank you everybody, appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day and a great session next week. Take care, aloha.
Thank you, Leon, Geschwind, and everyone for your participation. We hope you found this session helpful and made some valuable connections. Special thanks again to our sponsors, Sacred Hearts Academy Honolulu and the Augustine Educational Foundation for making this conference free for the past 10 years. Please help us complete the survey on the website iteach808.com so we can continue to receive grant funding. I'm going to add that link to the chat when I'm done here. You'll also receive a certificate of participation after completing the survey and automatically enter to win 1 of 10 Target gift cards if you complete the survey by February 4th. The survey will also be sent to the email address that you registered with. Please make sure to check your spam folder for any emails coming from iteach808@gmail.com. Thanks for being here today. Feel free to join the other sessions coming up and have a wonderful day. I'll just
Bye,
add that.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Great
Thank
seeing
you so
everyone.
much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Is this the link for
Yes.
the?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm all up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll just copy it. Okay, bye.
Bye.